energy to the world.
All sides, all views, all ways. Al Jazeera.
Be thrilled by the speed. Be delighted by the tastes. Be inspired by the sights. And enjoy the hospitality. The Muscat Festival. It's here, January 27th to February 24th.
Qatar Tourism Authority invites you to the 8th Doha Jewellery and Watches Exhibition from the 15th to the 20th of February 2011 at the Doha Exhibition Centre. Sponsored by Qatar National Bank and Qatar Airways.
He's taken stolen goods and he's now dumping them onto the world without any sort of consideration for consequences.
From people making the news.
If the North will be saved a lot of trouble, I think it is important that they should come together.
To those it affects.
We do accept that there was very bad mistakes made in our banking area.
Behind the headlines.
Most South Koreans are not interested in reunification.
Is the inside story. At this time on Al Jazeera.
On the next Riz Khan show, we discuss the fear of regional contagion as leaders in Syria, Jordan and Yemen make preemptive changes to avoid similar uprisings. Riz Khan, at this time on Al Jazeera.
This is Al Jazeera.
A very warm welcome to the News Hour live from Doha. I'm Fuli Batibo with Al Jazeera's extended coverage of the crisis in Egypt. Al Jazeera has obtained new pictures of the most violent night of the demonstrations, with protesters on both sides of the divide suffering brutal attacks. Meanwhile, a symbolic funeral for a journalist killed covering the unrest makes its way to Cairo's Liberation Square. The birth of a nation. Official results from South Sudan's independence referendum are about to be published. Sudan's president says he'll accept the outcome.
I'm Barbara Serra in London with the top stories from Europe, including showdown with Swedish authorities. The WikiLeaks founder, Julian Assange, appears in court to fight extradition from the UK.
First to Egypt, and thousands of protesters are still on the streets of Cairo and other Egyptian cities calling for the end of Hosni Mubarak's reign. These are live pictures there of Liberation Square in Cairo, where you can see, again, thousands there on day 14 of anti-government demonstrations still chanting and calling for an end to the president's rule. Meanwhile, the Egyptian president has been shown on state TV meeting members of his administration. His new cabinet has held his first full meeting since the beginning of the uprising. Now, Al Jazeera has obtained new video of some of the most extreme violence last Wednesday. Andrew Simmons joins us now live from Cairo with more on that. Andrew.
Yes, Polly, we've obtained this video. It shows events on the night of the violence, Wednesday, when anti-government protesters were attacking the pro-Mubarak demonstrators who had attacked them relentlessly during the day on horseback and camel, images people will remember. But these pictures haven't been seen before, and I have to warn viewers, they will find them disturbing. Before we show them, let me show you where the pictures were filmed. You'll see the burned out building on the right. They were the offices of the ruling party, the NDP. Zooming in now to the area to which the violence moved that Wednesday night, around this flyover that leads to the 6th of October bridge.
A crowd of anti-government protesters surrounding a pro-Mubarak supporters bus that had driven at speed into their number earlier. It's late last Wednesday night. They try to turn the vehicle over, ripping open the driver's door. There's no escape. Here, the driver's already been pulled out, and he's being lynched. From these pictures, it appears no one else was on the bus, but we can't verify that, and the fate of the driver is unknown. The frenzy of anger continues right through the night into the early hours of Thursday. Across the bridge, pro-Mubarak supporters on the move again, seemingly intent on more confrontation. But it all goes wrong. A mob of anti-Mubarak supporters swelling in numbers and showing no mercy. Each of the 9 men are attacked. Revenge for the earlier violence in which many of their numbers were killed. Hatred. While some of the men are led away, beaten as they go, another was singled out. It hasn't been possible to establish how many victims of this night lived or died. This was all filmed by a European cameraman. He says 14 minutes later, there was yet another dimension to the violence. Gunfire on the bridge aimed at anti-government supporters. A laser picks out individuals. This round finds its target. It can't be established at this stage who fired these shots, just as it isn't possible to identify victims or their attackers. The questions over last Wednesday night, Thursday morning, linger.
Some extraordinary pictures there, Andrew, and certainly when you see these images, it's hard to believe that only 13 people, according to the government, have died in this unrest.
Most certainly, we don't know the numbers. Whether we ever will remains to be seen. There's going to be a lot of investigation of the events of Wednesday night and early Thursday morning. It has to be said that the mood amongst those people was frenzied, of course, and it has to be said also that the pro-Mubarak supporters exerted extraordinary, awful violence upon the demonstrators. And it also has to be said that in Tahrir Square, which you can't see behind me now, and for the past 4 or 5 days, you don't see anyone like the sort of people who were on the streets that night. And thankfully, the situation is so much calmer now, and we have this problem now of the momentum, problem for the protesters, the momentum of their whole demonstration process, and the government using what they regard, many of them regard, as window dressing to move forward.
Thank you very much, Andrew Simmons, for that. As Andrew said, the situation much calmer now, especially in Tahrir Square, where again thousands have gathered this Monday on day 14 of these anti-government demonstrations. Here's Alan Fisher with more on the day's protests.
It was a tribute to a dead journalist, shot doing his job. Ahmed Mahmoud was filming fights between protesters and police on his mobile phone. He was shot in the head. The coffin is empty. His body has yet to be returned to his family. But the emotion and the pain is raw and real.
I feel like I lost a great thing. I lost my partner, I lost my daughter's father, and she needs him.
Cairo is slowly cranking back up to normal. President Hosni Mubarak has held the first full meeting of his new cabinet, sending a clear message he's still in charge. On the streets, shops are opening, banks are functioning, traffic is moving.
The past 7-8 days affected the entire country. The banks were closed, the post offices were not open either. When they reopened yesterday, everything was back to normal, but there are still some queues.
The protest in Liberation Square is now moving into its third week. The people here are getting more organised. The numbers stay the same. The space they're allowed to occupy is getting smaller. Slowly, the army is squeezing the area around the square.
Those who are thinking that we will get tired of sitting in Tahrir Square, we tell them that we are not leaving. Mubarak should leave Cairo.
For the anti-government camp, the worry is the air is being sucked out of these protests, momentum is being lost. The tanks and soldiers are a reminder of what has gone on over the past days and weeks, and a reminder that this crisis is also far from over. Alan Fisher, Al Jazeera.
Again, live pictures of Cairo's Tahrir or Liberation Square on day 14 of the anti-government protests, and demonstrators there staying put, still refusing to leave until President Hosni Mubarak stands down. He's also not showing any signs of heeding their calls. He's held, in fact, his first full cabinet meeting this Monday since the unrest began, with his new vice president as well as his new prime minister and others. The talks, meanwhile, have begun between the government and some opposition parties, including Al-Wafd and the Muslim Brotherhood. Those talks began yesterday. It's still unclear whether they'll continue in the coming days. But in the meantime, these demonstrations certainly continuing, not just in Cairo's Tahrir Square, which has become the focal point of these anti-Mubarak demos, but also in other cities such as Alexandria and Suez. And another big demonstration is planned for tomorrow, Tuesday, another so-called million-man march, as these demonstrations